Hey everyone, it's me again, Guardian Moes, bringing you another episode of Moes on Mic alongside our excellent guest of the day. On today's episode, we have got Dr. Craig Walton. He is a member of the College of Advanced UK. He's a researcher of geoscience. He works at the University of Cambridge, and he's also an author as well. He's written and published his own science fiction novels. How cool is that? Please give it a like, give it a share, and comment down below. Let me know what you think of today's discussion. Thank you. Enjoy. We started. All right. So, Craig Walton, how are you doing today?
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm doing good. I think it's an
Yeah,
incredibly exciting time to be talking to one another, and there's a
that's
lot to
great.
talk about. I think a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about. I agree. I think it's let me see. I'm just gonna put my notes up here, and okay, away we go. So we spoke in London at that conference. We've exchanged a bit of back and forth messages on X. I spoke to you. Maybe fill us in on your background a bit. I know you talked to Wiz about it, but for my viewers who haven't heard of you, just filling in on your background, how you got into being in the Advanced UK College, and most importantly, I think the begging question is, where do you see your role considering the emergence of Restore Britain?
Oh yeah. Wow. Okay, there's a lot there. Sorry, I made a face because my cats are fighting outside that door.
Oh, that's cute.
They're not
That's
happy
cute.
that I've got the door closed. But yeah, so I am a college member at Advanced UK. I'm Dr. Craig Walton. So I hold a PhD in Earth Sciences. And basically, I've been working in the university system for the last few years. I'm a researcher. I also do some lectures and things like that. And I never wanted to do anything to do with politics. In fact, I wasn't very interested in it for the longest time. But I've become motivated to join Advance and help with their mission because I think, like most of us, we feel politics creeping into our lives. And once you are forced to think about it and see just how bad things are, suddenly it kind of wakes you up, to use that term, and you realize, wow, we are facing an existential crisis here in the United Kingdom. And most Western countries have similar problems. So it's not just us, but really we need, if we don't get involved and actively resist some of the things we're facing, then the future is not looking good at all. And so, yeah, that's basically my experience of it was politics, things like DEI, race-based hiring, ideological litmus tests, firing of people who were saying what they felt to be the truth or thought to be the truth, simply because it conflicted with leftist dogma. All of those things were very in my face, unfortunately, in the university system. And then also having lived in London, where I'm leaving, moving away from, I experienced sort of some really, what I would say, bad aspects of sectarian modern British society, where people aren't mixing, and you're seeing horrifying things like Islamic gangs roaming the streets, and you realize, wow, we're really facing some dark stuff. So those are the two key things I think that motivated me to get involved with Advance. And I pitched to them that while I'm a scientist, I know a lot about what's true and what's not true about climate change, what would be sane energy policy. I know something about the education system. And so my job for the last 6 months or so, since I've been really officially involved in the college, has been helping to draft policies related to all of these things. So I contributed a fair amount to the immigration policy, to the culture policy, and it's not yet released, but I think it will be very soon, the energy policy, the education policy, and there's some others. So that's kind of what I've been contributing to. But there was a second part to your question, wasn't there? Which is, where do I see my position going forwards? And that's really, I suppose, the burning thing that's on everybody's minds now. And so I'll just start off by echoing, I assume you've seen Ben, our leader, Ben Habib's video, both the video he recorded immediately after Restore Britain announced that they're becoming a party, and maybe you've seen the interview that he did just the other day in a bit more detail. And I would just like to echo basically what he said. I think he's absolutely correct, which is that the right emotion to have right now is, oh, you still there? Oh, you cut off for a second. Sorry. Yeah, the right emotion to
Yeah.
have right now is excitement, because there is a huge amount of energy now coming out of the floodgates in favor of anti-establishment, right-minded political thinking here in Britain. And we Advance, I would say, he didn't quite go this far, but I would say that we should be given a lot of credit for achieving that. If you go back 6 months, a bit longer ago, what was coming out of Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain was, we don't need another party. And they have just demonstrated that they now agree with us that that is what we need. We need to have people getting into parliament who agree with these ideas, who are going to overturn the establishment. And that is Advance is doing fundamentally. It's no coincidence that Restore Britain have felt that, okay, we need to convert to a party now after the launch event on February 7th. We have shifted that Overton window, both in terms of what's eligible to be discussed and in terms of the way in which politics is going to be done. And the only question now is how we amalgamate together to get all these people under one banner and make it happen. And so that's now the discussion that's in play. And because we are principled people, we will not let petty party politics get in the way of that. We're going to save Britain and the United Kingdom. We are going to find a way to unite. And that's the opportunity that's ahead of us, which didn't exist until now. So I think we've done it. The first key step towards saving Britain is now done. And it was to convince anti-establishment people that we need a new political force. And, I can see you're maybe, wondering, okay, well, why isn't it Advance already? And, that's something to talk about. But these things are complicated. But I personally feel full of optimism. Because if you look at the ideas, in Rupert's video, this is what Ben said, the ideas in Rupert's video are the same. They're almost word for word the same as what was in our launch event and what we believe. And so, and then you see the reaction it got online, right? So I don't know, that video he posted got something like 160,000 likes. You've got
yeah,
tweeting it. You've got people like Asmongold, if you follow him, watching it. And
there's lots of shares and reposts and stuff. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
And for me, I just see that, well, he's ideologically aligned completely with me, and I put country before party every time. And so I think this is a really positive thing. It means the ideas that I've helped to mold and push is entering party politics and going viral doing so. And we're doing it, and so are they. But it's definitely it has to be the case that we merge and unite. So let's talk about it. I don't know what you think of what I've just said there, but I think there's a lot of optimistic.
No, sure. It's just, I think with Rupert Lowe announcing it was just so sudden and out of the blue. And even Ben Habib was just as surprised as us, and he didn't even know about it. So that's where there's a bit of a concern with advanced members. But I think the dust is kind of settled. But there's still, I do see in my comment section, I've spoken to Wizards as well. I've spoken to Paul Thor. I came on his channel, and we spoke to each other, and we were thinking, how do we actually merge the two entities together? In the most harmonious way, in a healthy way, in the way that won't divide people even more. So that's the begging question. How is the merge going to happen where all of the good stuff that's come out of Advance, the councillors, the MP count, we've got Nick Buckley and Gorton and Denton, we've got the infrastructure, we've got such a great concept like the college, being able to hold leadership to account. How is that going to be transferred to Rupert Lowe's Restore Britain?
Yeah,
so that's the begging question. And the discussion, that private discussion between Ben and Rupert, they haven't sat down yet. We don't know. And that Ben was calling for a gathering, a discussion for all the college members. I don't think that has happened. Maybe you can enlighten. No, that hasn't happened. So there's still things. There's a lot of mystery shrouded around this, but I appreciate different views from everyone on my channel. I try to be as diplomatic and impartial as I can. Some people say that Rupert Lowe stabbed us in the back, advanced supporters. They're being a bit over the top on X. I get people's frustration, but I'm trying to see things from everyone's perspective. But I think I want to talk about Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain maybe towards the second half of the discussion. Okay. Maybe we could discuss about the immigration policies that were discussed in London. Sure, I think policies were great. I think Ben Habib's announcements of all these policies was bang on. I've been saying time and time again, I agree with 95% of the policies that were announced, but there's that 5% that I would say I wouldn't disagree with. I just want a bit more clarification. I'm aware that it's being discussed within Advance HQ, and there's college members back and forth and just trying to iron out the details and just analyze everything meticulously. So I've actually I can't really share it to you on screen, but I have the notes all together, organized, neat and tidy. I kind of separated all of the policies into different categories. after watching Ben announce them. So immigration policies, I want to talk about that first. There's institutional actions, there's specific actions that Advance would take, and the process of deportations. Then after the immigration policies, we'll talk about British culture, so reinforcing British culture and national identity. Then there's promotion of marriage, family, and children. There's work ethic. There's reinforcing constitutional Christianity. And there's other government actions added in there. We're going to talk about that. And then we're also going to finalize with future policies and ideas that Advance UK could adopt and is willing to release in the future. So immigration policies, institutional actions, I'm just going to read it out, and I've highlighted the ones that I wanted to talk about with you. Is that all right, Craig?
Yeah, absolutely.
You happy with everything? Okay. So withdraw from the ECHR, that's fine. Abolish Human Rights Act 1998, Equality Act 2010, abolish that, fair enough. We don't need all that workplace discrimination, DEI bull crap. Abolish all hate speech legislation, fair enough. This one I want to talk about. Terminate the withdrawal agreement signed by Boris Johnson. Is there going to be an EU policy dedicated to that kind of process?
I think, okay, so I'm not the leader, right? So take everything I say just as my opinion and my understanding. And I don't know the future strategy for everything. The way things work, to be transparent in the college, is you have working groups set up, one by one, and then we can volunteer to join into them. So I think there is discussion of having an EU working group, which will lay out, how we're going to specifically deal with all these different aspects of interfacing with the EU. It doesn't exist yet. The EU group doesn't exist yet. And I suppose that reflects the fact that the focus is very much on the United Kingdom and sorting out internally, what do we care about internally? That's why there's not a real big foreign policy working group yet, but there will be as well. So yeah, there's going to have to be an entire EU policy. Unfortunately, although I don't like thinking about the EU too much, but there will have to be one. But is there a specific area that you think needs to be focused on in order to make sure that the redrawing of the map here works?
Yeah, sure. I'll go down the list, but this discussion is more like asking for your opinion as a college member, because I know you're working as part of the team, and I am aware you've said this before. Ben Habib said this before. All of the policies, not just the immigration, but every single policy that's announced by Advance, they're intertwined, they're intermingled, they connect with each other. You can't just tunnel vision into one specific area and ignore the rest. And I think that's a very sensible, mature approach. I really look up to Ben for taking that kind of approach.
What's also nice is that he's at pains to say that everything is in draft, right? So we're not coming in, as a group of whatever, 20, 30 people and saying, this is how it is. And we'll just tell you everything. It's in draft because we are specifically open to feedback from members or whoever will provide a reasoned argument. So you mentioned, you agree with 95%, but 5% you want to change. And that is what we need to hear. And actually already since the event, people have been feeding into me and lots of other people. We're going back into the college meetings and jotting all that feedback down so that we can get as much consensus as possible. I mean, we're never going to have absolute consensus. There's no such thing as that in politics, but we can definitely, this is the first draft. The second draft will be more detailed, having taken in people's opinions. And by the time, 3 years down the line, you're going to have gone through this iterative process of fleshing out a fully integrated map, which translates into legislation, which I think has never been done before. A political party has never taken, as far as I know, that multi-year process of building towards an election and building up the entire legislative framework beforehand. They just come up with a few bullet points before the election that sound nice, and then try and do the legislation afterwards. So that's what's so different. And just to touch on it, while it's in my mind, it's my understanding that this will not change regardless of negotiations with Restore, right? The college are providing, I think, a useful mechanism by which people like you can actually get things translated into policy, which can then shape opinion. And so I think we're going to be continuing to do this really regardless of what happens at the party political level.
Yeah, okay. Sure, it's good stuff. I appreciate that. That's fine. It kind of reassures people, doesn't it? Especially advanced supporters.
There's no future in which all of this just stops in a week. You know, like this is happening.
Maybe just like throughout this whole discussion, maybe pretend that there's a discussion around every single college member and you're proposing your opinion. So as if I'm Ben Habib and you can maybe give me your opinion. So with this withdrawal agreement, in the way that we terminate it or the way that we restart the whole agreement, EU agreement, do you see it as a gradual process or do you see it as let's cut this, let's cut that, and it's going to be quick, or is it going to be a gradual phase?
Well, in my mind, it would have to be quick. It would have to be quick, because I think so many politicians are terrified to use leverage and to experience a week even of complexity and intense negotiations. Right? They want everything to be done fully in advance, but sometimes people will only make the agreements that they need to when they're put under pressure. So my vastly preferred approach to securing the border, for example, would be day one. You're going in and you're basically freezing everything. You're getting control. I mean, that is the vision that we've laid out. And it's exactly what Restore Britain have said, as far as I can tell, which is that you want day one to be freezing everything so you have it under control again. There's nobody coming over in boats. There are no visas being processed. And then you reintroduce things, right? And you say, right, if you, France, do X, we will resume this, you know, under the EU agreement or whatever it is. So yeah, I would say that you need to have a hard cutoff, and then you rework everything out to a position where people are happy, because we have lots of leverage. People act like we don't, but we do. We can give people access to fishing rights and so on, like and defense agreements, and also if we align ourselves with America, huge leverage there over defense agreements, right? Because America want Europe to be moving in a certain ideological direction, which we happen to agree with. There's all sorts of levers of geopolitical power which European leaders never use. And you can come in, and if you're willing to use them, you can get a hell of a lot done very quickly. So this whole gradual thing, it would more be hardline initial position and then gradually move towards what's going to be the permanent new status quo. That's how I would approach it.
Sure.
Same way Trump does, by the way. Very similar to what Trump does, right? Trump comes in, he's like, 1,000,000% tariffs, and then that lasts a week, and you get back somewhere much more sensible, having forced people's hands. Sometimes you just need to use leverage in politics.
Absolutely, yeah. He just bulldozed his way through the White House, doesn't care, and that's what we need. And that's what people are hoping for with Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib, of course. So some of the specific actions I really wanted to talk about. There has been a lot of talk about dual citizenship. There were some people that were really concerned. Can you just elaborate maybe on your stance on dual citizenship? Is it being talked about in the college?
Oh, yeah.
Has Ben actually kind of taken on board people's concerns?
Like, yeah, again, this is actually a really good example of this way in which the members and people who are, you know, reaching out to us get to shape the policy directly, because that has immediately gone into the college discussions in the immigration working group, which I'm in. And so there will be changes there, because we've heard there's been lots of people feeding back and pointing out reasons why. I mean, the motivation behind it was that currently we have a crisis of loyalty in the country, where you've got loads of people with dual nationality, and they're maybe even standing for election in other countries whilst also being elected here. So who are they loyal to exactly? And maybe they're standing for the Bangladeshi National Party. They just had some elections. And so that's a nationalist party for a different country, and they're in politics here. So there's clearly a problem that needs to be solved. But and sometimes, you know, when it's a bit like Elon Musk. You know, you can propose something that's simple and quite hardline, and then you work out, okay, well, what did that break? What are the negative consequences we need to adjust for? And so I think, yeah, that's why on the slides online, as far as I'm aware, it no longer mentions getting rid of dual nationality, because, you know, it did seem like from people's feedback that it would just cause too many complications. For one thing, something we hadn't thought about is that if you do that, then people might choose to get rid of a non-British nationality, keep their British one, but then what if they're a terrorist?
Yeah,
you can't deport them. So
that's the concern. That's the concern. Yeah.
But my suggestion, and this is not finalized at all. Like these are very now fresh discussions to attempt to resolve. Okay, there is a problem with loyalty, but how do you deal with it? Probably when we're granting citizenship to people who have moved here, I think in the immigration policy, there's this idea of the residence covenant, which governs
Yes,
what you're allowed
the
to
new
do.
residence
Also,
covenant. Yeah.
maybe you could talk about that separately as well. But I think it's a useful concept. Basically, if you come over here on a visa and you do any sort of bad things, you got to leave. I think that should probably carry over forever. Like, if you've come over here and you're given citizenship and then you become a terrorist, I think you should be able to have that citizenship stripped. Probably. I think that it should be just a default legal thing where you're making a commitment in respect of us giving you citizenship not to attack us or do something terrible like that. So I don't know if that would address maybe the loyalty problem, or I don't. Yeah, like maybe you're not going to stand for election in two places like that. That's just not allowed. You could tie in to the process of becoming British a number of things that you're not going to do legally. Maybe that would be enough. I don't know what you think, but that would be my.
Do you know? I'll be honest with you. When I stepped into that conference, I did not expect this to come in for Ben to say that dual citizenship is going to be stopped, because we would be the first official Anglosphere country to stop dual citizenship. That's pretty radical for me, even for me. I'm not dual citizenship, by the way, dual citizen, by the way, but it's just that I did see a comment in one of my videos saying that, like, you know, if I have a dual citizenship with Britain and Canada, well, I've got sick family. I've got a very elderly grandmother who lives in Canada. Well, if you're going to cut dual citizenship straight away, what am I going to do? There's concerns because you have to incorporate everyone's viewpoints, and this dual citizenship is not just to ensure the safety of people in Britain, to prevent terrorists and people with nefarious intentions from hijacking the system and taking advantage of dual citizenship, but it's also to safeguard, you know, people who are legitimately using dual citizenship for genuine reasons, for personal reasons. So there's a lot of complexity there, isn't it?
Yeah, there is, absolutely. And that's why we're starting years ahead of any election to shape these ideas. It's not going to be that in a group of 30 people come up with the right ideas on everything first time. The only thing I would say that comes to mind as you say that is the reason for people need the ability to move between these different countries because they have family in one place and another and so on. It doesn't always mean you have to be a citizen, right? Like, that's a high bar. The ability to move and spend time in places is one thing. Being a citizen is sort of the top level of political integration you can have in a nation. And even like, I have family abroad, but I don't feel the need to be a citizen of all these different places. And it wouldn't even really occur to me. It would be a strange thing, you know. I think a lot would have to change in my life for me to feel like I should be a citizen of a different nation. You know, so
Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually a really good point, Craig, because like Britain, the British passport is one of those powerful passports. You can travel anywhere without a visa. Same with the Japanese passport, Canadian passport, Singaporean. Yeah, there's a lot of leverage around that. Definitely, definitely. Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I didn't. Yeah. Next, let's move on to what did I put? Yeah, the green list. Work visas only to be granted to people from countries on green list. I'm not going to mention them. For the viewers, you can search out which countries they are, but it's mostly primarily EU countries, the Anglosphere, and Japan and Singapore, Switzerland, etc. With these countries in the green list, only work visas will be granted on these green list countries. The real question is, what if the guy who applies for a work visa, say he's from Canada, he can't speak a word of English, or he can barely utter a sentence of English, but he's a citizen of Canada? Do you know how bad the multicultural issue is in these Anglosphere countries? What would you say to that?
Well, that's a good point, but that is exactly why we've also introduced the residence covenant, because we acknowledge that actually for any country, it's not just about whether you can speak English. Like, people could come in and speak English and then behave terribly and attempt to destroy your country, right? Like, you need to have something that governs the behavior of somebody that's coming into the country because they want to benefit from being here. So that's why you have the residence covenant, as well as this idea of changing the proportions of visas handed out to different countries. Because country itself is just a general proxy for how well somebody might assimilate. It's going to be, somebody from Canada is more likely to be beneficial and to assimilate than somebody from Syria. that that statistically, but not guaranteed. What will guarantee that we then have a defense against somebody behaving terribly if they arrive here is the residence covenant, because it's going to limit the things you're allowed to do when you get here. And if you're coming here to try and start a political revolution, blow things up, start preaching radical extremist beliefs, you're going to go regardless of where you're from. So that's kind of the way in which those two things will integrate. But we will need to have some granting of visas to countries which typically have higher skilled people. It's a tricky one. We're in a situation where the economy is globalized, and if you cut yourself off completely, then you become uncompetitive, and then you start to lose GDP genuinely. So I know the idea of immigration at the moment has been destroyed because we've let in so many people, so many of whom just take money out of the system. But if you lose access to skilled labor, and especially as we enter into an ultra techie age, I think that would be a real problem for Britain. And currently we're losing rich people. So we need to flip this. We're gaining people who are taking from the system and losing all our rich, productive entrepreneurs. We need to flip that. And the green list is kind of making sure that we're not cutting off everything. That was kind of the idea behind it. I don't know what you think, but
No, I get what you mean. It's just people's concerns, but it's very difficult to balance. Do you see what I mean? That's why I think you suggest. I mean, you brought up the new residence card. I think this is a brilliant idea. Just to once people on a work visa who land on British soil, they know the law, they obey the law, and they know that they're a guest in this country, and they have to abide by the rules and terms and conditions of their, the boundaries of their visa. And it's a good way to actually jump into the new resident covenant, because there's a few rules. I mean, you must obey the law. You must only engage in activity permitted by your visa. And there's three of them that I actually thought was a bit difficult for me to process. Well, not difficult, but I just wonder, like, it could be clarified a bit more. If you're on a work visa from these green countries, you must not engage in political activity. You must not advocate for foreign cultures, countries, religions. Therefore, you cannot proselytize. So no proselytizing. So my question would be, okay, how would you actually enforce that? Is that going to involve the REFT? That you've got the concept of the immigration enforcement and tribunal system. We'll mention that later. But how on earth are you going to enforce Islamists on the streets yelling whatever, free Palestine, whatever, proselytizing?
Yeah. So there's several layers to this. One is that when you introduce most laws, actually, you're not envisaging that it will be applied always everywhere. Almost no laws are. Laws exist in a way to provide a deterrent and to give you the option to do something about a problem, right? So if you've got someone out there and we know that they're organizing extremist rallies where it's like death to the West, let's say that as the example, and yet they have this visa where it says no proselytizing or whatever else it says, you can then just get your immigration enforcement to remove that person, and they've broken the terms of their visa, right? It's not saying that like every single person everywhere who does something which is technically not allowed under the agreement is going to be found by the police, because that's not practical. But what is practical is to take down high-profile people who are like the centers of attention and the organizers of these things. You can definitely find them, because they're drawing attention to themselves on purpose by what they're doing. They're saying, come and look at me. I think all these crazy things. I want to tear down the society I've moved to. That's going to become impossible for them because there's an easy legal mechanism to remove them. And it provides a big deterrent to other people to do the same thing. So I actually think, and that's kind of the same thing in America to some extent. We don't want to use America, for all inspiration, but a much larger number of people, when they see the law starting to be enforced, just in a few cases, either stop or just leave what they were doing, because you have that deterrent. So the real impact comes from people seeing in the news, okay, this now exists. I am actually, limited in my behavior by this. Somebody's been arrested for it. I'm not going to do that anymore, or I'm leaving. So just having any law enforcement at all has an outsized impact. You don't need to find every individual person who's breaking it.
Yeah, no, of course you mentioned like law enforcement, and people kind of deterred from engaging in these activities. Even if you were to be able to successfully deter people from proselytizing on the streets or whatever, and implementing a law for that in their work visas, all of these institutions in the UK, they're all captured, like civil service, the police themselves. There's NGOs, there's HR departments, and this and that. There's Quangos. There's all sorts of institutions that would be against Advanced UK. How would you circumnavigate around these kinds of roadblocks in order to actually implement your no proselytizing, or all of this, the new resident covenant? What do you think about all of these roadblocks, these obstacles?
It's a huge one, and I suppose that lies at the heart of like why
That's the main concern, isn't it?
It's the main concern sort of underlying everything else, because at the end of the day, if the British people's democratic will had been enacted at any point over the last 30 years, we wouldn't be in this situation, right? And across Europe, that is the case, where, and this goes back to like the 50s practically. If policy had just mirrored what people polled as wanting and voted for, then you would have a very different outcome. And so I think that is essential. And it's at the top of my list, and I think most college members' lists. It's like, how do we make, you can dream up the best policy that would work, but how do you actually get it enacted? And I think that things are changing actually in our favor on this, because what I would say is that in the past, and even when the Tories were last in charge, right, the social media was also captured. Right, so social media is one of the most powerful mob rule, sort of direct democracy, if you like, systems where you can put pressure on people with power, and by lots of people just shining a spotlight on them and being like, "What are you doing?" We've seen this happening in America actually, and in Britain with the rape gangs, right? Like they went unsolved, just ignored for decades, and now you have X basically forcing it into the limelight again, and change is beginning to happen there, and on other issues. And so I'd say that is the key thing that we can use. As long as you have free and discussion on social media, as long as we can hold on to that, once you've got a government in power that has a mandate, whenever people try and block it, you can just post it online and let people freak out about it. Like that's what has been holding us back, I would say, for so long, is that the discussion online would have been one of the most powerful mechanisms to hold people to account. And it was also controlled. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If you went against whatever the narrative was, you just get removed. But that's no longer the case. So I think the stars have aligned to give us the power to come in and fire everybody that is obstructing the will of the British people. It's going to be way harder for judges to come in and be like, "Oh, we're going to rule against you arbitrarily." It's the amount of public pressure that's going to come into play there. It's already getting higher and higher, and it's only going to get more so, I would say. So I don't know if that convinces you. But in addition to all the power that the government would have, and under a genuinely anti-establishment government, right? Like the Tories weren't anti-establishment. They thought climate change is literally ending the world. We need net zero. We need endless immigration. They were just pure leftists, really, when it came down to it, and rebranded. If you have a genuine anti-establishment government willing to do what it takes, coupled with mass media and social media pressure, I think it is actually doable.
Sure. Yeah. I feel really reassured when Ben Habib he talks about civil service. We've got to fire members of the civil service. Some of them, well, a lot of them have allegiance not to Britain but to foreign countries. They got to be gone. It's just madness. I don't even understand. Sometimes Parliament is just a pantomime at the stage.
There would be a clearing out of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of civil servants, deleting almost all the Quangos. I mean, all of that almost goes without saying, but we have lists internally of Quangos to delete, and there's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, thank God for David Starkey for producing statistics. 444 Quangos. They are in charge of a third of government expenditure. I'm paying my taxes to something I can't control and I have no democratic say in, and they're independent for God. It's crazy.
It is insane.
It's absolute mad. Okay, so right, where are we? Yeah, I'm gonna move on to the borders. I think this was really firm. Everything, most of what was mentioned, I think, was pretty spot on, etc. Illegal migrants, detain, deport, incarcerate, etc. If you were to secure these illegal migrants if you were to lock them up in a secure facility, and you weren't able to deport them to their country of origin because, as Ben says, you may not be able to negotiate with the source country, on how they would return back, what would the secure facilities look like? Would it look like something like El Salvador, the way that they strip them naked, and what
El
would it look
Salvador is an
like,
interesting
do you
one.
think?
I actually went to El Salvador a couple of years ago, after all these recent reforms, and it was a pretty cool place, I have to say. Incredibly safe. I felt way safer there.
Good.
I was just like, this is magic. So it turns out if you lock up a bunch of criminals, it does work actually.
Well, did you see the documentaries that they put on? They put the cameras in front of the prisoners, and they're all standing there, they're like they're drug gangs and pedophiles, PDFs, and criminals and all that. It's pretty mad.
But again,
How
they're no longer on the
organized they are.
streets, and it's one of those things where people say, "Oh, but what if you catch somebody innocent?" But like, politics is about doing the most that you can. Right? You're never going to have a perfect. If you're waiting for perfection, everything will be ruined. That's kind of why the leftists ruin everything, because they're always aiming for utopia. But in El Salvador, the gang members had huge tattoos. Right? It wasn't difficult to work out who was a gang member. They were proud of it. So that's very easy there. Maybe a bit harder here. But I'm not sure we need to have El Salvador style ultra secure facilities. Maybe they'd be useful, but I think we're not dealing with actually organized gangs. We're dealing with random people coming across in dinghies, right? Like, they are dangerous if you just let them loose, right, to wander a town with no other purpose in the world. But we're not dealing with an organized army, and gangs are a very different thing. The El Salvadorian gangs especially ran the country. We're not dealing with people who run the country. So it's not going to cost that much, I don't think, to collect these people. Currently, we're moving them around ourselves. We have a sophisticated distribution network. You here have an illegal immigrant into your town, delivered in the bus. So we just rework all of those systems, which are currently enabling the problem, to move all of those people into tented camps that are patrolled by armed guards. And then you use every geopolitical leverage you have to deport those people. I mean, you're saying, what if they can't be taken back? Almost every country will take these people back if we use our leverage. We are currently pumping out foreign aid to all these countries. We're one of the biggest economies in the world. We still have a huge military. We're allied with America, which is the world's hegemon, massive superpower. We can make this happen. I mean, I think I would say deal with that problem of who you've not managed to remove later, because at the end of the day, there's a bunch of people in our prisons who should also be deported, and there's be plenty of space once we're done with this. Trying to get the problem done will create up loads of space in the jail. Anybody who there's this unique circumstance where you can't remove them, put them in there. But I think it would work out, to be honest, if we actually tried. The problem is currently nobody's trying. Nobody's genuinely trying currently.
Yeah, sure. Tell that to Shabana Mahmood. Yeah, 100%.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So talking about the rubber dinghies, stop the boats and all that. Ben Habib, he's quite firm with this. He talked about the Royal Navy being given full legal protection, intercepting rubber dinghies, stop payments to France, smuggling gangs, we got to tackle them, the RNLI, and also introduce an Immigration Enforcement Force and Tribunal, IEFT. So Royal Navy, RNLI, IEFT. Maybe do you want to lay down your opinions on those three? Just how do they connect with each other?
Yeah, well, it basically currently you've got leftist legal systems and agitators who will go after anybody that tries to enforce the border, right? So they frame it as, if you don't import these people after they've thrown themselves into the sea, you're the criminal, right? So first of all, you get rid of that whole legal precedent that's criminalizing enforcing the border. Then you directly order, with full immunity, all the people who would patrol the border in maritime sense, to enforce it, to not let people in, to bring them back to France. And you just have a no tolerance policy for it. I mean, France will fold. France aren't going to go to war with us over this. They're just going to take those people back and then enforce the border on their side. And there'll be a domino effect throughout the whole of Europe. So, yeah, and for within the system, you do need a dedicated effort of people. Basically, as I just mentioned, the whole state apparatus, which is currently distributing people, needs to be dedicated to rounding them up and deporting them. Right, so that's what we would do. Just use the same resources as currently is facilitating the invasion to reverse it and end it. So we have the people say, oh, it'd be too difficult. No, it wouldn't be. We easily have the resources available to do this. So I mean, it would even be better if we just stopped helping them. Never mind trying to stop them. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. I love the idea of an IEFC. I think it's kind of like a British ICE, but they're more to do with dealing with the rubber dinghies. So yeah, that gave
The
me
main
goosebumps. I think it's
problem,
a great idea.
well, I'm glad you think that. The main problem with it is more propaganda from people who want to undermine the rule of law. You know, they call, as I say, people enforcing the law the criminals, and they make their job as difficult as possible to get people killed, or for example, and then pin that on law enforcement and say, well, we've managed to get this person killed, so now you need to stop deporting people. It's really sick what people do.
No, but people will tap into that kind of like moral victimhood kind of complex. Because I remember when Ben Habib he came on Talk TV with was it Julie Hartley Brewer, and she was asking him, "Would you let them drown?" Basically, you are literally allowing for them to drown in the water. And Ben he says he regrets making a sort of his response, but because they have to take into account that you have broken into the country. You chose to come here. You were the ones who stepped foot on British soil or
I
into
think
British
that
territory.
it's a question of whether or not you're allowing somebody to guilt trip you into being responsible for someone else's
Exactly.
decision.
Yeah. They're
Like
just trying to
they're in
guilt trip
France, they're
and
not in mortal
scapegoat everyone.
danger. They're not coming from a war zone. They've traveled across the whole world to get here, and they're
Exactly.
relying on the fact that you're going to be guilt tripped into taking them in and giving them a new life if they just throw themselves into the ocean. And if we don't have the precedent that we will help, if you say no, I won't help, you can't just do that, then they won't do it. Nobody will drown in the ocean. Nobody, they will stop coming. The only way,
Exactly.
because people do actually drown trying to cross the channel because they think we will help. So the people getting these people killed are leftists and anybody who says that you should help.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just peak gaslighting. I hate it.
No,
Yeah.
they're responsible
And
for those people's deaths. Obviously, they can't come, and we won't help, and then they won't come, and nobody will die.
yeah. Do you know we had such stormy weather recently? I always think like I look outside. I wish this would happen every day, so it stops the rubber
You do live
dinghies
in a
from
good
coming
country
in.
for it, so
Yeah. I mean, they have to cross past 20 different safe countries to get here. It's just ridiculous. It's
precisely.
about the benefits. Stop the benefits.
Obviously,
The
also that's
benefits
another
section.
aspect of it. They've created a honey trap basically for people who think they can have a better life. I mean,
They
you know,
think they're coming to the land of milk and honey. That's the problem.
it's a horrifying situation and that the left have created and the center. Yeah, no, it's not good.
Yeah. Right. Quickly moving on to reinforcing British identity. There are a few things that need ironing out. There was one that said mandate all publicly owned buildings to hoist the Union Jack. What if they refuse?
What if they refuse? I mean, so you mean civil servants and people like this who are working in these buildings who don't want to fly the flag of the country?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I would imagine that they could either be fined or fired. I mean, that's a good way to weed out civil servants that don't respect the will of the British people. They won't even fly the
Mm.
flag of the country. Just fire them.
Can okay, so if they fly the Union Jack flag, can they fly any other flag, do you think, in your opinion?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, if
What
it's
if
a
it was the Union
recognized.
Jack and the Pakistani flag
Oh no,
simultaneously?
no,
It's
definitely not.
tricky. Do you see what I mean? Like you mandate it, and then they put well, there's one Union Jack, and there's 100 other Pakistani flags surrounding it. Well,
Yeah,
that's
well,
what I would
but
do
yeah, I
if I
think
was an Islamic extremist.
yeah. I mean, so I would imagine that. I mean, I've seen the internal policy drafts, which have like many more bullet points below the ones that we talked about. You know, and I suppose we're waiting to release all those to feed back in. You know, what people think. But in my view, you shouldn't be allowed to be flying other people's flags unless you've been specifically told to do so, right? So if you've got the embassy, or it's
Yeah, it's
like
an embassy. Yeah.
somewhere where that's appropriate, then maybe, right? But like on our public buildings that our taxpayers are paid for, you should not be flying the flags of another country. And I know it says in that proposition, every public building Union Jack. I would probably soften it if I were the one just getting to write every word, and to say that they must fly a relevant flag from British history. So that could be the English flag if you're in England, or the Saltire, or wherever. Like I don't know if it always has to be the Union Jack, but I certainly think it's really important that we reinforce the symbols of our nation. I mean, there's lots of also local flags which are beautiful and mean a lot to the people there. So that's what I think these public buildings should be flying, is a relevant flag. They shouldn't be flying ideological flags, right, which divide people. So you shouldn't be flying whatever the progress flag or the flag of a different country. It should be flags which belong to everybody that lives here.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of complexity with that. Promote marriage, family, and children. I have no problems with it. Tax breaks. Yeah, just cut tax. Inheritance tax. That's an evil tax. Cut that out. Cut welfare, work ethics, stop paying people on welfare who refuse to work. What are your views on the welfare system? Just, you don't have to go on a long spiel. Just,
well, I know that it's overly easy to get welfare. I mean, it's unfortunate. I know people who use it, and they could work if they wanted to, and it's so easy to abuse. There are times when I think, why am I not on welfare? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
I barely make any more money, so it gets ridiculous, and it is surprisingly easy to get on that. But it's not a good thing. One of the reasons not to do it is it destroys your soul, to not provide for yourself, and to be reliant on other people, because someone somewhere is working to pay you that money, and so it's not really good. And I mean, if you cannot work, right, like there are some percentage of people who are in that position, and we need to look after them. That's a very Christian thing to do, to give to the needy. And actually, by the way, I would say, as a sort of meta point, a lot of what leftism is about, in my opinion, is like an extremist version of Christian ethics, where usually they're atheists, but then they have this kind of like bastardized version of what Christianity is about, and like give to the needy, and they just take it to massive extremes. And so, yeah, we need to end that. It's a good thing to look after yourself. It's good for everyone around you if you're producing something which helps them that they want. That's how the economy functions, and that should be the default. So currently, it's completely absurd. What's happened, and it's obvious why the left want that. The more people that are on welfare, the more people will vote for the person giving you the welfare, right? And that's what's happened in Argentina, where they're now finally reversing that, but it took a century. And almost everybody was working for the government. Either you're on welfare or you're working for the government. At that point, you're not going to vote to kill your own employment. So it's
sure.
like an infection that spreads and is self-replicating, because it gives you an incentive to vote for the thing that's hurting you and everyone else. So it needs to end.
Yeah, it's not beneficial for society. I keep telling people, if you got two arms, you got two legs, you can stand, you can walk, you have a backbone, which Starmer doesn't have, and you're perfectly healthy, you don't have disabilities, you should be working. It's just Rupert Lowe is very firm on that as well. Reinforcing constitutional Christianity, ban cos marriage, ban burqa, niqab, foreign religious courts, so no Sharia law. I'm happy with that. Well, I'm actually, overly joyed about that. Ban swearing on the Quran in Parliament. That's just ridiculous. Okay. Ban the conversion of churches into foreign religious buildings. What about existing religious buildings? Sikh temples, Hindu temples, Islamic mosques. What happens with them?
Well, I mean, I suppose.
Do you know that mega mosque that was going to be built in the Lake District? What happens there?
Yeah, well, I certainly
What
don't
would
think
Advanced UK do?
mosque in the Lake District. I think it's appalling. It's absolutely mental. Yeah, I mean, building a mega religious structure where there's no worshippers yet is a sign of conquest and intent, not anything that's necessary. I don't think we should be ripping down existing buildings, right? Like that serve a genuine demand, right? Like because it's always a question of balancing people's freedoms and interests. Like I used to vote left. I am a liberal person by
Same, yeah.
natural, as there's lots of people who are now on the right wing are. I don't want to be going in and being like, right, okay, we're banning everything else. Like, in fact, I'm actually an atheist, by the way. I mean, I deeply respect Christianity and its foundational role in my country, right? It's a Christian country, but I'm not a practicing Christian. So I'm not out to sort of mandate that everybody has to be Christian now. I don't think that's reasonable either. So we probably shouldn't be tearing down what people have built before. But I don't think there's many Sikh mega temples being built where there's no Sikhs yet. No, you know what I mean? Like there's there's a specific trend of certain ideologies which are by their nature expansionist and colonized and have done throughout their whole history. And it's just purely reasonable to engage with that and say, well, we don't want it to happen here, so we're going to take some stand against it. So yeah,
Yeah, there's
I
always
mean,
that. It's just that one religion that kind of is driven by force and conquest rather than actually an expansion, rather than harmonious, mutual reciprocal respect.
and
With
look,
which is an
it,
constitutionally Christian country, being the United Kingdom.
it's a constitutionally Christian country, and ultimately, we know from all of history that if you allow multiple competing ideologies to come in, they will compete and they will fight. And we do not want that here. We do not want that here. Not at all. I mean, the number of wars fought between Christians and Muslims over the centuries is incredibly long and bloodthirsty. And there's just absolutely no reason to reintroduce the conditions for that if people are against it, especially. I mean, it's not like we're here and 99% of people want to do this. There's mass majority opposition to it. Most British people do not think that this is a good trend. And so, yeah, obviously we have to do something. Obviously.
Yeah, I see. I get what you mean, because it'd be very difficult to actually institutionally implement some kind of policy to tear down an existing mosque or a temple. But I just get pissed off with the imams converting a centuries old church with all the infrastructure in place and then converting into some kind of mosque. And
But
it's just disrespectful. It's downright evil, I think. It's
well, that's
just.
because they understand what other people are refusing to engage with, which is that it is a competition, and they are actually trying to replace the imagery, the institutions, the ingrained nature of Christianity in the country, and also sort of liberalism in its original sense, right? So they also don't want freedom of speech or the ability to criticize all religions and all this. They're trying to put an end to all of those things. And so wherever somebody is actively trying to get a foothold and spread their territorial claim over the ideology and institutions, you got to resist it. You have to. I mean, you've got a bunch of other countries where that's already won, and I think that's plenty.
Yeah. A lot of complexity there. Okay, so I'll move on to this is the last of the policy section. Future policy. I think there's some ideas that I wanted to come to discuss with you. So halal and kosher slaughter, non-stun slaughter, wasn't discussed in that conference. I wish Ben Habib would actually touch on it just very briefly. We don't have a policy on it, but we're discussing it. I wish that would happen. That was the only thing I was a
Can I
bit
jump in?
unhappy about.
Yeah, so I know it was actually mentioned in the Restore Britain launch video. I will say that in the college discussions, it's there, like it is there. It's in discussion. I think that there's no real point posting policies until you have like broad agreement. And basically everybody agrees on the animal rights angle, and then it's just thinking through how you'd actually do that. And I think that it's not totally. I mean, it's an easy thing to say to ban halal and kosher, but like to what degree? And like, so you're going to ban imports of all that stuff? I mean, it's just a question to you. Like, have you thought through what it looks like? Because you
I
need the
think
government to come in and regulate like a whole bunch of stuff there.
Well, being an animal lover myself and a Christian myself, I think even Rupert Lowe's stance is not strong enough. Yeah,
Mm.
you should ban the practice of slaughter in this country, but also ban the imports, because people will just be importing them in bucket loads. That it's not really. So you're not, if you're okay with the imports, then you're not really doing it in favor of animal welfare and the well-being of the animals, are you? You're just treating it as a sort of business practice.
Mm.
But banning halal and kosher, I think it's more easier said than done, because based on my instincts, I would ban it on day one. But then at the time when I was thinking about it, I thought on the other side, and I thought, hold on a minute, all of the businesses, the economy, specifically related to food and beverage in the UK. I mean, 80% of meat that is sold on supermarket shelves, it's all halal. It's all religiously slaughtered. So what are you going to do about that when you have just look at London, right?
Oh yeah.
There's all sorts of fast food chains and restaurants. They all rely on the meat that they're sourced. They source it from these halal slaughterhouses. And like, what are you going to do when you suddenly remove that halal label, and they have to pursue other means? Are they going to buy their chicken from Brazil? Are they going to buy British chickens when it's double the price of halal? Yeah, I think it's something to balance out with possibly the economic policy that's going to come out of
Well,
advance, and
that's
also this.
exactly.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and this is actually a good way of linking in the farmers as well. I think Mark, the bowler hat farmer, is going to be involved in this. Like, it's not just about diminishing the supply of a halal and kosher meat, but bringing up at the same time British agriculture, British farming, British produce. Is it going to be done simultaneously, or is it going to be, let's ban halal kosher on day one and then let's kickstart our efforts and drill our energy and our time and efforts
Well,
into British agriculture? That's
as
that's the
Pains,
question that needs to be asked.
I agree. I mean, I'm as I'm at pains to say, I'm speaking for myself, not on behalf. You can't take what I'm saying as actual policy. But basically agree with you. I do think that banning it, including in imports, is the right way, and it will have consequences because the economy is kind of addicted to this stuff now. So it's true. When I go out in London and try and buy food, almost everywhere is halal because there's such a high demand for it, and so that will hit a bunch of businesses. But I think in a way you might just have to accept that in the short term that is a consequence of achieving what you want. Do we want a country where all the food is halal? No, we want a country where none of the food is halal. People who are currently demanding that food and driving up the price of food in general may well leave if they genuinely cannot get something which to them is religiously important, and they'll move to a country where they can, and that's right and proper, and that's where they should be. And so you can see how the market will readjust, right? If lots of people are leaving under these new policies, the demand for food, the price for food will come down, the price of British chicken will fall. And I would imagine that there's now a demand, from these restaurants for non-halal food because they have to use that. So I think things would rebalance. It's going to be a tricky process, though, and as you say, the economic policy will have to really think through all the consequences to make sure that in the short term, a bunch of people don't go out of business.
Yeah, sure. That was my main concern. Sure. Um, right. There's quite a lot of things that I wanted to talk about, but we kind of ran out of time. I did want to speak to you about Rupert Lowe, but I think I changed my mind. I said I thought maybe let's reserve that for a part two, and I wanted to involve Wizword and Lectrodoc as well,
We can do
because
a
we should
second
actually
time. I mean, I have a
we
bit
can do
more
a
time.
second part. I'd be happy to get Wizards on because we all want
Mm,
to chime into the conversation and get your
that sounds
input.
good.
Because I believe your stance on Restore is a bit more optimistic, whereas with Wizards, he thinks about things differently. I get the frustration. I totally do. I've been as I said, I've been as diplomatic and impartial and balanced as I possibly can. There are some red flags I see with Restore Britain, but I'm trying my best. Do you see what
Look,
I mean? Maybe
I,
actually give your thoughts again, just very quickly.
I'll give you my thoughts again, and then I'm very happy to do another chat. And I love chatting with
Because
Wizard.
that needs an entire section to be
Yeah,
dedicated around
and
Restore Britain.
the situation is so fluid that like whatever I say now will probably be out of date by next week. So we may as well have another chat. Um, I just want to keep reiterating what Ben has said because there's so much wisdom in the things that Ben says. And one of the points he made in
Absolutely.
his interview is that the best scenario going forwards for a merger is that Restore adopt the constitution and the structure of Advance and then maybe change some of the key people in influence and the name. Because the structure of Restore as it stands, it wasn't set up to be a party, right? Like we know that, like that was the whole thing, is that we didn't want we want a movement, not a party. So it's a limited company, and the structure is set up to have somebody basically owning it completely. But it's not the normal structure of a democratic party where members or other people can come in and hold leaders to account. The great thing about Advance is that you have the college. The college are elected by the members, or they will be. They will be in future. They'll be elected by members with a fixed term that they can serve. So I'm not there forever. I've got a couple of years, and then someone will replace me. And then Ben, as leader, we can remove him. So as Ben mentioned, it's much like the structure of Parliament. You've got the voters, the representatives, and the Prime Minister. It's kind of that in miniature in the party. That's democratic, it's accountable. It means that you can't end up with a situation like reform, where Farage is kind of just God Emperor of the universe, kicking out whoever he wants, which is what led to Ben leaving and the horrible treatment of Rupert Lowe. We can't have a situation where that could ever happen again, even in principle, regardless of, okay, the people in charge are way better, but like you just need the structure to be different. And Advance gives that. We were ahead of the curve. We knew we needed a party. We knew we needed this structure, and it is working. And so that's the future. The best future is for that to be adopted by Restore and integrate under that model. You have Rupert Lowe at the top leading things, going viral, doing the amazing work that he's doing. And you have the structures in place to make sure that members can exercise some control over the direction, if they ever need to. Probably they wouldn't, but if they ever felt they need to, that's the appropriate structure. And so
Yeah.
I hope that that's what we will push for, and that should in principle be very appealing to Restore, because why would they go through all the work again to build this up from scratch when we have this, and we share so much overlap in the membership, right? Like so many people. I'm a member of both. I've been a member of both since the beginning.
Yeah.
Before I became a college member, I signed up on day one to both. So it needs to be one thing. And ideologically, there's no disagreement, it seems, right? We all have this almost identical vision for the future. So we need to merge. And I personally would be optimistic for that. And I just think that the structure of Advance is the right way to pursue it. And then let's do it. Let's do everything that Restore are pitching. I mean, the attention they're getting, as I say, the reason I'm optimistic is because when you see that level of energy, that is something that can truly change the country and the world. So yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. No, it's good to have people on the optimistic side just to balance out the equation. Would you be free tomorrow at 1 p.m? Because me and Wizards, we're gonna have a chat on
Yeah,
StreamYard.
1 p.m. tomorrow. Yeah, that's
We're
fine.
gonna chat about this merging between Advance and Restore. If you're free, I'll text Wiz and see if we could get you on, because I think it'd be good to incorporate different perspectives so that we can all acknowledge. I see your opinion, I see your point of view, and I've been talking to Paul Thorpe as well, and
I saw that.
there's a mixed bag of opinion. It's good to have a mix. It's good to debate about this. Because I'm just thinking about the future of even my YouTube channel as well. How do I title my videos now? I'm a strong supporter of Advance, and Wiz and I we're on the same team. But how do we title our videos now?
One more comment, which is political factions exist regardless of the name that they might have or the formal structure, right? So like if we merge, people who liked Advance before will still be the same people as they were before with the same beliefs, and they'll still exist, right? And they can still wield power. So I think that going forward, it's worth keeping in mind that you're always going to be able to associate with people that you agree with, right? Like it's not just like that. That's the end. Like I personally, the future that I see for Advance is one where we are there. We have a college. We're generating policy. We're shaping the debate and maintaining some pressure in pushing for the vision of the country that we want. It's not a question of putting up things and going home and that's the end of it. Like Advance is crucial. And a merger politically in terms of getting people elected is obviously what's needed, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to be pushing for the vision of the country that we want with Ben and Hope and you and me pursuing it that way. It's not a question of bending the knee to somebody and then no longer having your own thoughts. So I don't think that's the future.
Sure. Yeah. I'll text Wiz. I'll see what he says, if he's happy with you being on there. If you're free tomorrow at 1 p.m. But yeah, it'd be good to have a discussion around this a bit more in depth, and I can just spill a bit more beans to you and let you know a bit more of my personal opinion. But
I think there's Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
There's so much to discuss. Yeah. Absolutely. I did want to talk about Advanced UK Future. Would you like to reserve that for another day, or are you happy for us to go 15 minutes over?
We can chat a little bit more longer now if you want. That's fine.
Are you sure you're happy with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you could just let me know if you want to clock out anytime, okay? Just maybe let's keep it short, 15, 20 minutes, not too long. you mentioned on X that you are leading a project within Advanced UK Future. What was the idea here?
Yeah, so I think it's essential for young people to be able to have their voices heard really loudly before they're in the formal positions of power, right? So that's the problem, is it takes a while to become an elected politician or to really have lots of influence. And by that point, you're no longer young. So you need a mechanism for young people to really be heard. And ultimately, it's them. Those are the people who will be inheriting the decisions made by elected politicians. And so I think in advance, I wanted there to be a youth movement where we're getting together the best and the brightest and the most energized young people and creating basically the structure of advance for young people. So the idea is there'll be a future college, and I'm currently scouting out people for that. So you'll have a whole group of young people who want to read the policies as they're being developed and give their feedback from a young person's perspective, which will then go into the college and just directly shape what we're doing to make sure we haven't lost out those young people who wouldn't otherwise be involved. And I also want there to be a future media wing, right? So it's really important what you're doing, right? But getting people involved into the podcasting space. So I'm going to be launching my own show actually next week.
Good, excellent.
It'll be quite fun, interviewing people and giving them the opportunity to meet some of these top names. So we're going to start with an interview of Nick Buckley. That's what's scheduled. And getting young people involved in that, getting them involved in content creation, showing them the best and most productive and healthy way to go about social media. Because I think it can be quite toxic, if you're left on your own, and it's quite an isolating environment as a young person at the moment, to be engaged in this stuff, and giving them a structure to work within where they're helped to do it, as healthily as possible and get some exposure. That's the vision. So just giving people experience of the policy and the media angle really early, and maybe recruiting some future stars in the process.
Excellent. I mean, that's good stuff. I did text you on X. Like, if you, I'd be willing to help in whatever capacity for a podcast. I have a few video editing skills. Obviously, I have my YouTube channel, as you can see, and I just love debating with people and just talking about things. There's so much, negativity out there, and there's room for positivity. There's room for growth for this country, especially amongst the youth. I just feel like there's so much cultural apathy amongst you and our generation. You said you're 30. I'm 28 this year, but the youngins that are younger than us, they're just lost. And this goes on to a whole new different topic. It's more the cultural side where young people are they feel they're lost. They don't have a sense of identity. Some of them have lost hope in politics or the future. They can't afford a mortgage. They can't afford their bills or to move. A lot of people still live with their parents, and this shouldn't happen. This shouldn't take place. That you should, as a young person in your 20s, be able to chart your course for yourself, be independent, cook your own meals, be able to do your own laundry, do your own washing, get a job, get a 9 to 5, be motivated to wake up. As Ben Habib, he says as well, get motivated as soon as you wake up and have your first coffee in the morning. You should be optimistic at least a little bit every day to serve your community or to serve your family if you have family in the future.
Yeah. I mean, you've described the problem expertly, and I would just add that the reason this has happened, the reason fundamentally it's happened, and that nobody's addressed it, is because we have an inverted population structure to normal. So people aren't having enough children. There's fewer young people than old people. So all the voting power is reflecting the interests of old people, not young people. And that's the first time in human history that we're dealing with this all across the world. So that's why it's all going wrong. That's why young people feel so left behind, and why the economy is no longer serving them, because it literally isn't. All the laws are just reflecting what's good. Or well, I mean, that's even changing now with socialism coming in. But for the longest time, even when you had conservatives coming in, it was old people making decisions and with old people priorities, and that's leaving young people in the dust. And they don't get it. Honestly, when young people try to talk to old people about it, unfortunately, for the most part, they just can't get their head around it. They're like, "Oh, just get a mortgage." Interest rates were higher when I was young, so what's the problem? But that completely, they don't get that wages are so stagnant with inflation and house prices are so high. Mass immigration has driven this up. Your wages are low because you're competing with people who are willing to accept almost no money etc., etc. Taxes are higher, etc., etc. Yeah, everything is wired against a young person. And I think that's what's so important about the movement, the political movements that you and I are helping to shape, is that they actually do attract young people because they are actually talking about these problems. So I think it's a really important thing that we do this, because big episodes of upheaval in human history happen when young people are left behind and ignored. When they feel that they have no hope, they just burn everything down. So I think, unfortunately, we're seeing it happen all around the world, where you've got these Gen Z protests that topple governments. I don't want that to be the way in which our country goes. I mean, sometimes I want to topple the government myself, but it needs to happen peacefully. Chaos is overrated.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish the government would incentivize young people to start small businesses as well. I was sitting next to a guy who was 22 years old in that London conference last week, and he wants to start he's starting his own marketing advertising business. And I told him, like, best luck. I salute you. I mean, I have respect for you, but I wanted to start my own food company, like a food truck. But I'm not going to do that under this Labour government. Starting a small business, and getting it up and running is like running a marathon. It's just not. It's not like one hop and a skip and you're there. Why would I run a marathon under the control of this Labour government, only to end up spraining my ankle and to run into mountains of debt and to deal with taxes and to deal with this and that? Starting a small business under a socialist government is just literally almost impossible. So that's why I told him I'd wait for an advanced government for myself, and then I'll kickstart my small business.
I completely agree. I mean, and to some extent, the reason they hate small businesses is because those people have different economic priorities and will never vote for them. So
they have control. They have control over their own lives. They can think independently as well.
And they're directly benefited by low taxes rather than high taxes, and so on and so on. So all their priorities are not in favor of what socialists would do. And so they're literally the enemy, and you've got to regulate them out of existence and just create large corporate monopolies. That's the intersection of socialism with big business, unfortunately. And small business is the heart of capitalism, local scale things which grow over time and compete with one another. But it's all aspects of the economy are ruined by this. So I know the left love to talk about renting and giving rights to renters, but they destroy the rental market by so many regulations that mean if you ever wanted to rent your house, you'd be so disincentivized from doing it that the number of properties that are available to rent are really low, and therefore the price of renting goes up. So that's why all these economic incentives are just totally perverse. And they hurt the very people they're meant to be helping. They harm renters completely by lowering the supply of rental housing and increasing the cost. So and yeah, again, same with small businesses, same with everything, really, unfortunately. But it's a tricky one, and I think you need a critical mass of people to really understand what's happening to vote against it. And that's why I worry. That's why I'm involved, because I don't think we can wait and just hope for it. We need to be involved. You look at Argentina; it took 100 years. They languished in economic, an economic quagmire under socialism for 100 years, and they're finally starting to turn things around. So that could easily happen here. We could spend the next century just poor.
Do you know this might be controversial to say, and I appreciate what the points that you made, but I don't think the Labour government have gone far enough. Things need to be a lot worse for people to wake up. I know it's bad to say, but it's not bad enough. Not enough people are switched on and have woken up. I don't know what your opinion is.
Yeah, to some extent. I think that it's because they still have mass media support. So people don't even know what the problems are, and they're able to avoid them. So a large number of people who would have political influence, middle class people who are doing reasonably well, they just don't even understand at all how bad things are. They basically live in a permanent university bubble. I mean, I would say genuinely that is the case. People go to university, they see a model of the world where they think, well, I'm surrounded by all these diverse people from all over the world, different cultures. We're not fighting that much. Everything seems fine. It's going to be okay. Let's just do the whole world like that. And it has no resemblance to the real world. And again, you go into University Hall, you're given your food, as part of the deal. It's basically a socialist utopia, But socialist utopias can only exist in miniature. They don't work at the national scale. And I just think that so many people go there, they get their fancy degree, they get a reasonable job, and they think it's fine, whilst everybody else is screwed. So until that group of people, and the people who are actually socially mobile and have money, are feeling the heat, yeah, I agree with you. Nothing will change. But I actually do think there's reason for hope. Again, I'm sort of pushing the optimism front here. There is reason for hope in the same way that there hasn't been for the last 20 years, because those people are going to start feeling it now. Their incentives are going to be aligned with everyone else because of AI disrupting all of this and reducing your degree to a worthless piece of paper. And it's changing the economic incentives completely. I mean, it's going to be a difficult thing for all people, I think, to deal with AI, but it's going to mean that for the first time in ages, the sort of questions that go through a normal person's head will be going through an Oxbridge graduate's head. And I just, I'm just glad that I was slightly ahead of the curve and didn't wait for it to be me out of a job being like, oh my God, this is terrible. At least I was, onto that before, because I did go through.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I think everyone else will be in the same boat very soon. That's my opinion.
Yes, I think sooner or later, these people that are in their university bubbles, they will, the bubble will break, and they
Well,
will wake up. It's just
and
a
the same
matter of
for
how it
middle class,
happens.
middle class white people who live in the countryside, right? They literally
Yeah,
left the multicultural areas, moved to a 100% white ethno state, and then preached about how great multiculturalism was. That's a
yeah.
temporary thing. That's a temporary thing. Once those areas are disrupted as well, there's nowhere to go. You try and leave the country at that point, and some of them are, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, you've perfectly described where I live. I'm in the county of Wiltshire. This is southwest England. It's a Lib Dem stronghold. You go to Cornwall, you go to Devon, Dorset, Wiltshire, Somerset, Glastonbury, especially. They're all Lib Dem strongholds. These people just live in their own bubbles. And
Yeah.
you mentioned at the beginning you're planning to move out of London, and I wanted to touch on that. I did live in London for 5 years, and I just got sick of it. Some people just can't speak English. It's a complete shithole. And I moved out here to Wiltshire. So where would you plan to move?
Okay, I'm gonna not disclose exactly where I'm going,
No, that's fine.
but it's basically just somewhere between here and Cambridge, because I still work there, and so it will be a much more rural area, basically. I imagine it's probably a Lib Dem stronghold. I haven't checked, but knowing
No,
that's
mate,
probably what it is.
be
Yeah.
careful. They're planning to turn Oxford into a 15-minute city. I don't think Cambridge is that far away.
Yeah, like no, Cambridge is a university bubble. I won't be living in Cambridge. I mean, these universities are they're a fascinating place. I go back and forth on whether or not they're uniquely crazy nowadays, or maybe they've always been crazy and I just didn't know it. But they're a strange place. Universities, university towns that are unlike anywhere else in the world. And yeah, I genuinely think that the root of so many of our problems is that people think you can run the whole world like a university, when you just can't. It's just not how it actually works in reality. So they need to
Do you
wake up.
know, I was the only one in my classroom, number of classmates, who actually didn't go to university. My mum and dad, they ran into financial problem. I'm not going to go into specifics, but they couldn't afford for me to go to uni. And I just think now, in retrospect, thank you for running into problems, because this is more. This is not a. This is actually a blessing. It's not a curse, because I have real world experience. I didn't go to uni, and I'm happy with that, because
Yeah, no, I
I
really
was kind of
respect
I was inspired by Jordan Peterson at the time, during his peak period, when he was the one who came out and challenged the narrative of this whole transgender DEI in Canada. It was that serious that they put in Bill C-16 to suppress freedom of speech into parliamentary motion. That is just, I thought that was just a step too far.
that.
And I was kind of a lefty at that point in time, back in 2018, 2017. And I looked at it and I just thought, you've gone far,
It's
too
funny.
far,
We
way
have the
too far.
same process, because that's also watching his stuff and seeing that debate in Canada is also what began to shift my thought process. And then because he won the argument so effortlessly with such logic, and that the only way to take him down was just to be like, oh, don't listen to him, he's evil. And then you start to see more and more people around you who are going down the, well, he's just evil, don't think about it. And you can just see, you just know, it's like 2 + 2 = 4. They're just wrong. They haven't thought about this. They don't want to think about it. And then you realize there's a whole bunch of other issues where the same thing is applying. But I mean, look at the terrible consequences of that ideology in Canada. You know, you've got just the last week or a few days ago a mass shooting by a man saying he's a woman, mentally disturbed,
It's
and the
crazy,
media
isn't it?
in Canada, and in fact, the police officer disclosing the details immediately after the event, insisting that it was a female. We use the word female, and Sky News, a female has done this. I mean, it's not. It's a lie. It's an absolute lie.
No, I thought you described them as a gun person.
He did all those things. It was a gun person, and then he said, "Oh, it was a female." The alert that they sent out, the shelter-in-place alert, said female. You know, a female in a dress. It's disgusting. So even during when people's lives are at risk, they're prioritizing the feelings of the shooter over reality and just telling the truth about what's happening to the people who are in danger and afterwards. So it's disgusting stuff. And unfortunately, it is a mental illness and not something to be praised or gone along with. It'll make things worse, actually. Usually, most mental illnesses, we sort of implicitly understand that, do not get better from affirming the delusion. You know, if you've got an anorexic person, is it the right thing to be like, you are fat? Starve
Yeah,
yourself?
exactly.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely
exactly.
not.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, I want to chop off my arm. Or you should chop off your arm, definitely. It will make you happy. It's crazy, crazy stuff. So, and I hate the fact that at universities, these basic idea of truth is being subverted to what's the social truth. It disgusts me because university is meant to be about what's true. So if the universities are pushing out the idea that you should lie for the greater good, then all is lost, you know, unfortunately. So we need to,
Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely. We
what the
need to
future
break
of
the
universities even are, actually, to be honest with
No,
AI.
we need to break. Yeah, we definitely need to break the bubble. There's so many of these young people that just either indoctrinated or they're probably part of the majority of what we're thinking, but they're not willing to voice their concerns very understandably because their reputation could be at stake inside of the university.
I think most of
Yeah,
them don't look into it at all. That's my
yeah,
opinion. They just
yeah, yeah, true.
they're meant
Yeah,
social pressure to agree. They understand implicitly, subconsciously, that the threat of disagreeing is enormous, and so they actually don't even
absolutely.
research it at all because they don't want to know if they're wrong.
Well, no, you can apply that to Hollywood as well.
Oh yeah,
These Hollywood stars, they're just reading off of a script. They don't actually. I don't think they. Honestly, you can't make it up. I mean, these celebrities defending the um, over in America defending these illegal. Did you see Natalie Portman? She came out in that film festival and she's saying like,
Mm.
it's terrible what Donald Trump and ICE are doing to these illegal people in our country. It's terrible. It has to stop. Like, do you actually honestly think that, Natalie? Like,
Well, no,
honestly?
Natalie can say that because she lives behind 10 layers of security at all times.
Yeah, and Billie
She's
Eilish as
absolutely.
well. She lives in
She's
her own
privileged.
mansion behind uh,
She's
gated community.
These people, and almost all of the people who take these stances, are the ones who don't have to deal with the problem.
That's why. That's why I'm just thinking like of moving out of Wiltshire. It's just too I'm too much in a bubble. There's
Where
nothing
would you go?
happening
I
here.
mean, you're in probably the best, most peaceful place you could be. I mean, where are you going to go?
Mate, I love Wiltshire, but it's too. I want being so involved in this political, the R gang inquiries and all that, and all of the stuff that's going on in the country. I just can't live in a place where people are just so culturally either apathetic or just don't know about anything that's going on in this country
Yeah, like it's
outside of their
frustrating,
county. It's
but
what is happening in this country. If you're like me living in Wiltshire, the stuff that I talk about is a very esoteric subject. I go to my neighbor, I go to people living here, they won't have a clue what I'm talking about. I bet
you'll
half
sound
of
like
them
the
probably,
crazy person. That's how it works.
yeah,
You'll sound like
I'm
the
like the
crazy person.
crazy, I'm like the conspiracy
Yeah,
theorist in my own hometown. And,
yeah.
I'm planning probably to move down to the South Coast, somewhere like Bournemouth or Portsmouth.
Ooh, you
You know,
choose to put yourself in that environment.
I mean, yeah, it's bad, but nothing could be worse than London or Birmingham. Trust me, I've lived in London. I've actually, come on,
I
I've
don't know.
I'm used to that multi-culti kind of.
You should do whatever you want to do, but
Because at least I can protest outside of the hotels or do a bit of, there's
yeah.
people around me that share the same kind of political, cultural views. So potentially there's more of a community sense. But that's a different
I'll leave
debate.
you with the
We'll have to
thought,
say.
an optimistic thought that given time, most of the people in that area will be your political allies. I think. I think so. The day is coming. The day is coming because conformists are easy to defeat in an argument once you've gained some social clout and standing in the world. It's impossible to persuade them with evidence or logic or reason. But as soon as you are just becoming the biggest thing, all those people will switch to you immediately. And because we are already the majority, it is definitely possible to win this thing. You just need to organize that majority into a valid political force, and all the fence sitters who are just going along with whatever socially acceptable will flip.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, definitely. To a certain extent, I think the southwest of England, it's known for being a bit more sleepy, but yeah, most people are pretty based here, especially the older generation. But it's just the young uns I'm referencing. The ones in university is a bit different. But yeah, I mean, look, the guy that I met in that London conference, I got his contacts. I'll pass it on to you, and maybe he seems quite passionate about advance. I don't know what his thoughts are on restore Britain, but yeah, maybe you can.
The key point is that we are going to keep doing this valuable work regardless of anything, right? So people, we need this is not a moment to be losing momentum and faith. Everybody needs to get involved.
No, keep me in the loop about Advanced UK Future. I was really optimistic about this project that you built. Yeah, that's really it. Maybe talk about a bit more about your personal interests. You got some science fiction novels that you have published before.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's a good maybe way to finish. And then I'm going to head off to the gym next. Actually, that's where I'm off to next. But yeah,
Great.
I am a novelist. So that was my first love before becoming a scientist, was writing books. And then I found time over the last few years to publish about 5 now. I've got a 6th one coming out later in the year. So yeah, I've written a science fiction trilogy, which is all about enhanced evolution. It's kind of like Jurassic Park in space. So we're building all these crazy engineered environments that go horribly wrong, as you could imagine. By the way, it might not be so far-fetched. When I wrote it, it just seemed preposterous. But with the way technology is speeding on, I think we're going to be editing genes, human genes, and etc. really soon. It's going to be weird, weird stuff, potentially dangerous. Yeah.
Mate, have you always been into sci-fi?
Yeah, big time.
So, who is it? Douglas Adams. He's your favorite author.
He is awesome. Douglas Adams is awesome. Alistair Reynolds, who did a PhD like me in science up in, he studied in St Andrews before I did my undergrad. He's written lots of awesome books about the dark forest idea for solution to the Fermi paradox, where where are all the aliens? It's like one solution is that there's a master race of aliens cleaning up house whenever competition arises, and they're going to wipe out humanity next. I quite like that idea. Scary stuff, but it might be true. Stephen Hawking backed the idea, and he thought we shouldn't be sending out all these signals because maybe we're just alerting like a super predator to our existence. It's possible. Yeah, Douglas Adams is awesome. He's really funny. He's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He's insightful.
No, it's all cool. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. No, do you want to text me the links to your books, and I can, if you're happy with, I'll promote them down in the video description.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, I'll send those over. Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know if I'm kind of into sci-fi. I mean, it's a different sci-fi. I play Cyberpunk. You know the Cyberpunk video game.
Cyberpunk's great. Yeah, that is good. Have you played Mass Effect?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. That's I guess it's maybe a few years before maybe you were getting to games, but it's a trilogy of massive sort of RPG sci-fi games where you're going to save the universe.
I searched out Mass Effect, yeah, because you were talking about editing genes just now, so I thought I just immediately thought Cyberpunk. So
Cyberpunk is a masterpiece. It's really quite. It's a good game.
Yeah, I went into London for that conference, and before getting to the Amount Centre, I had to go to Forbidden Planet. I had to make a bit of a trip. And I bought this graphic novel, this cyberpunk graphic novel.
Cool. That's cool.
I haven't read it yet, but I will get into it.
The problem with cyberpunk is increasingly London looks like we're in cyberpunk. It's like, okay, maybe not in real life. Yeah.
No, we haven't got Cybertrucks yet with Elon Musk.
Well, a few years.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how the trade agreement goes. But yeah, thanks very much for joining me, and we'll we'll see you again possibly tomorrow, but if not, a part 2 talking about Restore Britain.
Thanks very much for having me. It's been great.
Absolutely. One last very quick thing. Have you got contact details for Max Reynolds? He's a
Yeah.
part of the college.
Yes, I do.
Would you mind passing it on to me? I'd
Yeah.
love to interview him.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, he's really cool.
Yeah, I wanted to discuss about Marxism and communism. It's quite a good topic to talk. I'm really interested in it. So
Good topic.
I'll text you on X. Maybe we can pass the details on.
Sure thing. Sounds good.
That's great. All right. I'll see you later. Thanks a lot.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Moes on Mic. Thanks for tuning in. In case you missed the last discussion with another amazing guest, click here, or even better, if you want to see my interview with Amelia, no, I'm just joking, another one of my videos, click here. And just scroll down to the description, there's a link down below I've provided for you. Click on the link to purchase his novels on Amazon. And whilst you're already down there, why not just hit the subscribe button? I'm trying to gather a big army of patriots to take down our beloved chairman, Keir Starmer. Or is it Kim Jong-un, that son of a bloody toolmaker? Anyways, this is Moes on Mic, powering off.